Talking about wishing people birthday, and of course I mentioned some children as well. It's beautiful when we show children all the love and care. Unfortunately, there's some children in this part of the world, and in fact across the world, who are not given this much attention, this much care. In actual fact, they've been thrown into the adult life already at the age of what, 8, 12, sometimes as young as even 6. I've seen photos of children who are working in illegal mining pits here in the country when they're supposed to be in school. And all that constitutes to child labor. So whether it's domestic, whether it's in the agric sector, in the industry sector, wherever you find yourself, as long as you're a child, you should be in school. And so if you're found working, and it's under very hazardous conditions especially, then it's even more worrying. Now in 2017, the ILO Global Report that studied from 2012 to 2016 indicated that 152 million children, that's like 1 in 10 of all children worldwide, are engaged in work that is detrimental to their health, to their education, and to their well-being. When it comes to Africa, we have 1 in 5 children who are involved in child labor. And it says that Africa has the slowest improvements with regards to the global fight. Now let's come to Ghana. And even more worrying is the fact that 21.8% of children between 5 to 17 years are involved in child labor. And that means close to about 2 million children in the country are involved in child labor in this country. And it's worrying because there are a number of government policies that have been put in place. We're hoping that there'll be more that can protect these children. But some way, somehow, people are able to circumvent the law and still involve these children in child labor. And, there's the Children's Act as well. That even defines why it is illegal for these children to be involved in it. So what have we not done right so far in the last couple of years as we hope to fight child labor? And even though we're waiting for the latest report on the statistics regarding children, it's still important that we have this conversation because June 11th and 12th is the day where we mark the World Day Against Child Labor. And so we're going to have this conversation right now in the studios. And joining me this morning is Mr. Emmanuel Kwame Mensah. He's a development consultant assisting the Child Labor Unit at the Ministry of Employment. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. Also joining us is Andrews Tego. He's a Deputy General Secretary of General Agric Workers Union. Good morning, and thanks for joining us as well. Let's talk more about the statistics because it's worrying. And now we're even being told that because of COVID-19, which saw children in Ghana stay home for close to a year because schools were shut down, that has even led to more deleterious effects and, has fueled the issue of child labor in the country. Tell me more about this problem.
Yeah, so it's a big problem because behind the statistics are faces. In these faces are lives that do matter now as children and lives that reflect the kind of future we want as a country. So we have to look at it closely. If 1 out of every 5 children in Ghana are in child labor, and we understand that not every work done by a child is child labor. Children can do acceptable work as part of their development and social integration. But when they do work that affects their development, their education, their health, it's not good. And the Constitution is very clear on this. Fundamental Human Rights, Article 28, Clause 2. Every child has the right to be protected from work that constitutes a threat to his health, development, and education. So what we are talking about now is actually a constitutional breach. And I always make the argument that if one adult had his fundamental human rights abused, there'll be hula baloo around. But we have 1.89 million children who have been affected.
1.89 million?
Yes, who have been affected. In this country, who have been affected. And they're in various sectors, like you have mentioned. If you go to Tema Station now, you see children who are doing manual handling of heavy loads. We call them kayaye. And these are children who must be in school. Not just be in school, but get the highest benefit from education. The challenge about child labor is that it actually affects the economics, the workforce of the country. So we are depleting our human resources, and it will reflect very soon on us. The situation we have now is that young people who are supposed to have skills to do job don't have the skill. They can't do it because when they were children, they were involved in child labor. That is what we have now as youth employment. So the picture we have now is a reflection of what we shall be getting very soon. And Bella, this is a very serious situation as a country we have to attend to.
I want you to explain to me what we mean by light work, because it says here that under the Ghana Children Act 98, the minimum age for admission of children into employment is 15. However, children may be employed at the age of 13 to do light work.
Good.
What is the difference?
Good. Okay, so this is coming from the Children's Act, and it's very good to put it in perspective, because discussing the concept of child labor is not about opinions, how you feel or your previous experience. I'm at this, I worked in this, so it's acceptable. No. The law says, and Children's Act says, that light work is defined as work that doesn't affect the child's health, development, and capacity to benefit from school work. Okay? So a child goes to school, has the time to do her homework or his homework, that's extra studies, but she can help at home, protected in an environment, to do some petty selling, and even that helps her to understand the mathematics more when somebody buys 20 pesos pure water and then gives change and things like that. So things like this that provide the child with some income and support for the family, but doesn't affect the capacity of the child to benefit from schoolwork, health and education, is light work. This can also be connected to normal house chores and things like that.
So if I see a child selling on the streets and I ask the child that, did you go to school? She says yes, but I'm only selling maybe oranges or water to support my mom. That is not child labor?
That is not light work. That is not light work, because selling on the streets is hazardous. Light work is when the child is protected. Remember, the law says that it doesn't affect the health. Okay? On the streets, there are a lot of things that can affect the child. So that's not correct. I'm talking about in the house, protected, not in an immoral environment, and mommy is supervising and there's support. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Let me bring you in, sir, because when it comes to the agric sector, we find that there are a lot of children who are involved in this sector. The Volta region, I mean, over and over, we've talked about children who are involved in farming, and they are forced onto the Volta Lake. They have to dive, down there to fix the net or whatever it is, just so they can catch fish. And these are children who are supposed to be in school, but you go there during the day and they're involved. You go to the farms and they're involved in farming as well instead of going to school. So all this contributes to child labor. What is the real picture on the ground with regards to the agric sector especially?
Thank you very much. The statistics that he has given, over 70% of them are in agriculture. Over 70, and the agriculture too is in different sectors: fishing, cocoa, basic farming, at all sectors. There are jobs that children cannot do. But according to the ILO, agriculture is the third most dangerous occupation in the world. When you take mining and road construction, the next one is agriculture. So the work by its nature and form is already dangerous. So when children enter there, like you can see on the lake, I can see some screenshots on the lake, because it's an area we have worked for the past 15 years. Like you said, let me pick the lake. In the lake, Ghana's Volta Lake, where we get the prestigious tilapia, is a man-made lake. And it is man-made because, so you have a lot of tree shrubs, very long and tall trees, covered by water. So sometimes when you are driving along, you see some small trees, not small, it's very long deep down there. Sometimes 50 meters, 60 meters, very long trees. And then, like you can see, when the method of fishing on the lake is by casting of net. So when you throw the net into the lake, surely it gets entangled with the tree shrubs under there. And so the net traps both fish and tree. We want the fish, but we don't want the tree. So children, as young as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, have to dive. And they go under there trying to disentangle. So it's not go and pick, go and work. And in the process, my dear, some of them die. Some of them get maimed. Some of them get destroyed. And the issue is that it's in the middle of the lake where you are not, I am not, because we both don't swim. So there's not much coverage of that. All we say is the peripheral issues. Children are there and they are doing. But if you Google a trade union in child labor, we took some pictures, and then probably we can see some videos there, trade union in child labor. But so that is the magnitude. And in agriculture too, when it comes to, like he said, the laws prohibits the children from doing certain things. When it comes to spraying of agrochemicals, the active ingredient in the agrochemical is killing the adults. And most of the adults we have do not have the protective equipment, the right ones. When you look at the ones for spraying agrochemical, it has a long nose. It's not this one for corona. The corona one is different from the agrochemical one. And when you look at a farmer using something which is like the carpenter's one, we are already at risk, because that one even traps it and keeps it there. So there is danger. Our children are in danger. And when you talk about it, 10 years ago, we were in the state of denial. So when you talk to very senior officials in the state, they will say that it's a foreign thing, it's not practicable here. But our children are suffering. And we see them every day. What you see there on the street is just the tip of the iceberg, because it's a few people and that is what you can see.
Yeah.
But the majority of them are hidden on the lakes, under the mining pits, and doing a lot of activities. We are in crisis. So no wonder this year the ILO declared as the International Year of the Child, that we are using this year to ensure that every child out of child labor into school, and the adults do their job and do it decently. So that is the fight for this year during the, well, you can see people weeding under the trees. You know what he said, Kwame said, we are not saying that children should not learn. So that is the minimum age thing that he quoted. Children can do agriculture.
Yeah.
Because children can do cocoa, children can do fishing. But the whole issue is the protection, that you do that job under parental guidance.
Yeah.
You are not exploited in doing it, and it does not deny you of your education. When we say the education, you can go to school in the morning and sleep until you hear the bell ring for break. Then you go and celebrate. For all of us like break.
Yeah.
You go to break and come back, and everybody thinks you are in school. But because you worked deep in the night, children on the lake get up as early as 4 a.m. to go and cast the net, and the earliest they return is around 9 a.m. When you take a child like this to school, he's only physically present, but psychologically he's tired and he's absent.
Now, that won't be the only aspect as well. We're talking about children being trafficked for commercial sex work as well. And that's also another very disturbing one, because we've been told that now Ghana is what? An origin, a transit and also a destination for it.
Yes.
So how bad is that situation as well? Because at least in the last few months, we've heard mostly about young women who are trafficked, you know, out of the country and into the country to do commercial sex work. But very little has been said about children who are involved as well.
The difficulty about commercial sexual exploitation of children in connection to trafficking is that it's very difficult to take data.
Why so?
Okay, because it's behind the scenes. Okay, because it's clandestine. Because in the afternoon, the children may be selling orange, but in the evening, they are selling something else. Okay, they come in and not. It's difficult to even target as trafficking, because it might be connected to migration or irregular migration. So there are nitty-gritties inside there which must be unpacked, and work is being done at that. So we don't have hard figures about it now. But the critical thing about that is that it's not going into the traditional, if you like, sex work. It's going into cyber. It's going to online. It's going to transactional sex, where they just call on the phone and everybody knows it. Okay, so, and these are children who are being exploited by, they might be pimped somewhere, both men and women, and they don't know anything, and just being drained. Okay, so that's the problem. But the emphasis should be on the solution, and that's where the gap is. The gap is that we are putting in solutions, but now where we've gotten to, we just don't need solutions. We need scaled up solutions. We know solutions that work now. We must scale them up, because if you don't scale up, what is effective can be ineffective because of the large numbers. So we have a Ghana child labor monitoring system that is trying to create child labor free zones and causing all forms of child labor anywhere to be dealt with, because the children actually move from sector to sector. I just told you that a child may be carrying heavy load today on Saturday, tomorrow she's selling orange, the next time she's in commercial sex, she moves into mining. So the target must be on the child. This is very important, because there are some areas where there are economic interest. So they might put some money there because there's an economic interest to deal with the issue. But areas that don't have economic interest, but children are still exploited, nobody might give some support because there are no economic benefits. This must change. The focus must not be on the sector. If you get what I'm driving at, the focus must be on the child. So that whether it's in fishing, or it's mining, or it's cocoa, or it's kayayo, or it's commercial sex, or it's domestic work, If you keep the focus on the child, then we can deal with it. And this is something that happens at the community and local levels. So, yes, at national level, there can be policy and some programming. Implementation must be emphasized at local level. Local government authority, district assemblies, community people, chiefs, religious leaders, assemblymen, ordinary parents, farmers. The intermediaries are effective, but they shouldn't cluster out the people who have first contact with the child. Mother, father, brothers and sisters, assembly people. Let's talk about it in church. And let's talk about it, not just creating awareness. We have gone beyond that.
Yeah.
We must fix this problem. We know the numbers. And so when we are saying we are doing action, we must check whether the action is reducing the numbers, because it's not just about effort, it's about results.
But that's where the problem is, because if we even talk about child labor, even here in the capital city, we see it's glaring all over. We see parents who have their children and they're sitting on the, on the sidewalk and they're expecting their children to beg. And we've raised concerns about this over and over again, that get these children off the streets. Why are they involved in labor when they should be in school? But you go back to the streets and they're still there. And that has been in existence for years. We've seen how many children are even around the airport area. We've talked about it over and over again, and nothing has been done about it. And so it's okay if we come here and talk, but then the same people who are expected to do the work are not doing the work.
Bella, this is a perfect illustration I've given. Let me put it this way. If you ask me 5 plus 3, I'll tell you 8. But if you ask me, how does 5 plus 3 become 8? I might find it difficult. I've just chewed 5 plus 3 into my mind. But I must know how 5 plus 3 becomes 8. We must know how the solutions work out. It's good to create awareness. But you go into our law, we've just talked about the Children's Act. You go into a district assembly's bylaw, there are a lot of things inside that. You have to go straight into the law and ask the questions pointedly. Because general things are not working now. Okay, so in the Child Rights Regulation, for example, Regulation 34 says that in every district assembly, when somebody is suspected to be engaged in child labor, an adult, the Social Services Subcommittee, and there's a Social Services Subcommittee in all the 260 districts in the country. We don't have to create a new one. Okay, any member of the Social Service Subcommittee has the right to summon the person who he just suspects to interrogate and ask further questions. If just the summons, you refuse to come, you will pay a fine, a number of penalty points, and you can even go to prison for 12 months or both. And this is in the law. So if you want to enforce child labor in, let's say, commercial agriculture, you take your, permit me to say, journalistic notes and go straight to the place specifically. Look for the member of the Social Service Subcommittee, the assembly people, their social welfare people. Target the person, go directly, look into the law and speak. If you do that, you are, if you like, you are digitalizing the solution. You are pinpointing it. But we have done common talk, talk for a lot of times, and we must go beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring you in again, sir, because these same children, don't worry, I have your name. It's fine. So Andy, if you prefer that. So these same children, I mean, there's a report that I was reading. It was done by, I think, Friends of the Nation or so, where they, conducted a research on about 81 children. It says researchers interviewed 81 working children, some as young as 8 in Ghana, Nepal, and Uganda. In Ghana, Friends of the Nation interviewed 24 children aged 11 to 17 who worked at gold mines and carpentry, fishing by transporting goods. And nearly all the children said that the COVID-19 pandemic had negatively affected their family income. So many of them entered the workforce for the first time to support their families. And they decided to work because their families didn't have enough food. So we're seeing situations where the parents are poor. And so these children have had to find ways to support them. And that's why they find themselves in this. Now, if we're saying the law says maybe jail these parents because they are engaging their kids in child labor, who then is going to take care of the children? These parents are saying, I don't have a means of survival. And so maybe that's why my children have to work. And unfortunately, they'll have to work these long hours so they can make that 2 or 3 Ghana cedis so they can help, cater for the family. How do we address this?
It's a complex thing. When you are very far away from child labor, you think it doesn't exist. But it's just like a giraffe. When you are very far away from it, you see a small head. But when you get closer to the giraffe, you see how short you are and how enormous the giraffe is. The child labor situation is a complex one, but we have simple solutions. The child you are talking about is the breadwinner 2 or 3 other siblings are there, and he's 17 years, and he has to work to feed the children. So there are real issues we need to tackle. But then it still does not guarantee, give the child the right that a child should feed children. What is the family? Where is the state? Where is the, when you continue this way, it like the race to the bottom. You are retiring to a certain poverty line. So 17, he couldn't go to school, he became a father. So the poverty thing will remain. He cannot attain education, he cannot attain good employment. So those following will surely, so it's a cycle. We need to break it somewhere. And they take very hard decisions. Children like this, there should be some special social welfare interventions for them. When we are targeting, we should, like he said, we should be specific. When you look at the data, we know children who are in this state. They are not the majority, but they are in this state. They need to feed the family. There are also children in child labor because of the environment they are living in. One father with 8 children, and then he cannot afford certain things. So, and there are government interventions which are good in themselves, like the free education and all those things that is bringing children to school at the basic level. So we have when we talk also about COVID, you know, during COVID time, the two of us, we were on the field, we were working. We predicted that if care is not taken, because the schools were locked down, children were at home, school teachers were at home, parents were trying everything to get something on the table. So at that time, the vulnerability of the child became so high, and the predator was around. We predicted that children might leave home when schools reopen. Instead of going to school, they'll be going to maternity homes. So, and it had been confirmed that majority of the girls after COVID went to the maternity home. We just need some attention, because during those times we made many recommendations. That, so for example, one teacher can come to the school. In some communities where we were piloting some programs, we spoke to teachers. 2 of them or 1 of them come to school. Children who were alone in the house, keeping social distance and the rest, go and sit in the school. Just sit there, look at the COVID protocols, and then there's some supervision, and they were learning, and they were taken away from the dangers. But in some areas, they were just left. Even those marks that we prepared those days, we didn't do some for children. So we need special focus on children. You know, whenever, like, let's look at the oil we have hit in Takoradi and the rest. Go and look at the type of jobs the Ghanaians are doing, because we don't have the skill, because we have not trained our children, because we left the children around those areas to be doing fishing, marine fishing. So now that we have hit oil and we must all benefit from it, you go and study the type of work the Ghanaian children or Ghanaians are doing at the place, because we don't have the skill. It is time, and any time one child gets into employment, one adult loses a job, because it's adults who must work. But now children are competing with adults to work. So when we want to solve unemployment issues, let's look at our children. Let's keep them in the school. Let them do what children do, building up their capacity to be better adults for the future. Child labor is eroding the gains and the future of our young people.
So, I mean, tackling it head on, if government says we're going in now, we're going to resolve the situation, like you've said, the focus should be on the child. But if we have to review some of the policies, what are some of these policies that you would advise that we review?
FQ.
Okay.
We should review it in such a way that the compulsory and universal components are improved.
Okay.
Every child must be in school compulsorily. Okay? So this must be ensured by, if you like, security supervisors, people living in the community, and there must be sanctions connected to the chiefs and other people. And there must be consistent supervision of this. If the child is in school then there's lesser time to go and do hazardous work. And then the quality of education can improve. It must be universal too, because they are hard to reach areas. Okay? There are many children who are working in child labor because they don't have access to school. The school is far away, and the policy might be that they are just a handful of children, so you cannot create a new school for them. We must be innovative about this and do some public-private partnership or community partnership to get workable schools in the areas that are hard to reach. And if we do that, then we'll make school very close to the child, especially those who are finding it difficult to go to normal school. And then we should also improve the quality, relevance, and attractiveness of school.
Okay.
There are parents who say that, look, I have this X number of children. I took the first 2 to school. They are finished senior high and they are not employed. Why do you want me to take this other one to school?
But that's why there's a review of the curriculum. And I remember that the now, energy minister was then education minister. He mentioned it, that's why they've reviewed, the curriculum to introduce common core, so that even after secondary school, they equip you with some skills so you can find a job.
And this is good. Only that it must work out and it must bring the results, okay? And it must be scaled up. You remember when the junior high school system came fresh, there were supposed to be workshops.
Technical skills.
So that by the time you finish school at 15, you can get some jobs to do.
Yeah.
What happened? Okay, so it's important for us to see how these things work and scale up our models. 8 million children, we can make something good out of them and get a better future for our country.
Any final words before we go?
Yes, when you say final words, because there's so much to talk
I
about.
know. I've just been told my time has run out.
No, so. In Ghana, we have worked on this problem for the past 15 to 20 years. We have a national plan of action. We know what to do. If we have the right resources, I say, when I'm saying it on television, we have the right resources, about the 12 districts or so on the voter lake where children are working. With 4 years, we can reverse child labor on the voter lake.
We can?
So we can, yes. We know what to do. And it is through what we call child labor-free zones, involving community chiefs, involving the churches in the community, empowering community to call the assembly to action. We know what to do. Organizing the people at the community. It's their children. And we have piloted that in Pando Toko and some other areas. When you go to those places now, in some mining areas, when you go to those places now, you can see significant reduction of children. So Ghana will know what to do to take every child to school and every adult into decent work.
Do we have the money to fund it? That's also the other concern. I wish we could talk about that, but my producer says my time is up. But yes, do we have the money to fund all of this? Because whether we like it or not, a lot of money would go into this.
Yes.
If you're supposed to, come up with institutions to protect these children, you have to increase the number of schools in the areas where there are no schools. Do we have the money? Anyway, maybe another time we'll carry on with this. But thank you so much for joining me. I've been speaking to Emmanuel Kwame Mensah. He's a development consultant, assisting the child labor unit at the Ministry of Employment. And also, Andrew Stego is the Deputy General Secretary of the General Agric Workers Union. We've been talking about child labor in the country. And we know that on the 11th and 12th of June is when we will be celebrating the World Day Against Child Labor. Yeah. We're looking forward to the statistics. We hope that it would have reduced. And we hope that there will be more policies in addressing this issue once and for all. Enough of the talk. Let's act. Thank you so much.